Hi, students. Today I'm going to talk to you just for a little bit about making predictions. When we did our work last week, I realized that we're still a little bit rusty on the making predictions things. So let's move on. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Okay. So probability can be used to make predictions for the future occurrences. By setting up and solving proportions. So open up the workbooks that we had. Don't really love setting up proportions. A proportion is when you set one fraction equal to another fraction. And I'll show you with this example. The probability of rolling a 6 on a number cube is 1 out of 6. If the number cube is rolled 50 times, then approximately how many times will a 6 be rolled? So you're looking for how many times a 6 will be rolled out of 50 total rolls. So you could cross multiply, and this is calculator active. Typically, to find the value of x, we cross multiply. 1 times 50 is 50, and then we divide by what's left. But on the other hand, I like just to think about it like this. The probability is 1 out of 6 and you're doing the experiment 50 times. So you can just set it up this way. And this actually gives you a fraction 8 and 1/3 times. So since the fraction is 1/3, we'll just round it down to 8 times. Okay. So we're basically taking the probability of that event occurring or multiplying it by the total number of events, like or of what's gonna happen. Let's look at another example. Kinsey surveyed a random group of seventh graders as to whether they preferred video games, sports, or neither. Use her survey results to make predictions for the entire seventh grade class that has 350 students. That's not the amount of people she surveyed, that's the total number of students in the class. So, what you're going to do is you're going to figure out how many total students she surveyed, which was 40, and then you go through and you're looking for a prediction for people that liked video games. So video games was 15 out of 40, and we want to know the total out of 350 possible seventh graders. Oops. So we want to know what that equals. There we go. This is again where your calculator is useful. In my calculator, I literally type 15 divided by 40. You can hit equals then, or you can just type it all in one swoop, 15 divided by 40 times 350. And that gave me 131.25. And that quarter can round down, so 131 students. So we're predicting that about 131 seventh graders prefer video games based off of the data she collected. Part B, based on the information in the table, what is the most reasonable prediction for the number of votes for video games in the next 80 votes? So since we're still talking video games, we're still using the fraction 15 over 40, but now we're just looking for the next 80 votes. So when you type that into your calculator, you get 30 exactly. So 30 students. All right, there's one more example here. When you send mail via the post office, you have an 80% chance that it is delivered to the correct location. If 430 letters are delivered on Monday, then what is a reasonable prediction for the number of letters that are delivered to the incorrect location? So if 80% go to the correct location, then we know that 20% goes to the incorrect location. You can use 20%. Typically, we don't use percent in our calculator, so we would have to use the decimal form of 20%. You can also use a fraction form, 20%, percent would be 20 over 100. You can also just write 0.2. So 20% of the total number of letters, which is 430, equals 86. So 86 letters get sent to the incorrect location. And then the last part, on Tuesday, it's reported that 500 letters were delivered to the correct location. Based off of this information, how many letters were delivered on Tuesday? So we're actually looking for the total here. This setup is a little bit different. So the way that I visualized it in my mind is I rewrote the information they give us. 80% in this case is 500. I'm trying to figure out what the 100% amount equals. So 80% times what number gives me 500? That's the question I'm really asking. 80% of the total, which I don't know, gives me 500. So to get x by itself, I have to divide both sides by 8/10. The total amount of letters was 625. And that makes sense because that should be more than 500. That one you had to work backwards for. It was a little confusing. But what I want you to understand is a big important part of probability is using the probability of an event to occur, using that number to make predictions for the future. So if I have a small sample and I want to predict on a large scale, I can. And typically I do that using multiplication. All right, I hope this was useful.